Hello and welcome to the One Window podcast. This is where we uncover the truth about studying abroad, what works, what doesn't, and what every student and parent needs to know before making one of the biggest decisions in their life. At One Window Overseas Education, we have been guiding students for over 16 years, helping them navigate the complex world of higher education abroad. We don't believe in flashy marketing or empty promises. Instead, we focus on facts, real opportunities, and ethical guidance, ensuring that the students make informed decisions that truly shape their future. Through this podcast, we aim to bring you raw, unfiltered insights from experts in the industry, people who have seen it all and know exactly how this industry works. And today, we have two incredible guests who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to this conversation. First, we have Dr. Daniel Harper, Dean of Graduate School and Associate Vice President for International Initiatives at Christian Brothers University. Dr. Harper has been actively involved in international education for years, working closely with students, universities, and industry stakeholders. His expertise lies in academic program development, student success strategies, and building international partnerships that create meaningful opportunities for students worldwide. Alongside him, we have Harmon, the Executive Director of AIRC, the Association of International Enrollment Management. AIRC plays a crucial role in ensuring ethical standards in international student recruitment. Clay has been at the forefront of promoting transparency and best practices, working with universities and student advisors to create a system where students and parents can make informed, ethical, and well-researched decisions about their education abroad. This episode is going to be insightful, engaging, and maybe a little eye-opening. We're talking about university admissions, ethics in student advising, and how to spot a red flag when choosing a study abroad advisor. So let's get started. Hi everybody, good morning and welcome to One Window Podcasts. Here we make sure that all the information which comes out of these videos, it is very helpful for all the students and parents. And today in here we have got two incredible guests who are from different organizations. We have Dr. Daniel Harper from Christian Brothers University. He is the Dean of Graduate School and Associate Vice President for the International Initiatives. Along with him, we have Clay, Executive Director of AIRC, the Association for International Enrollment Management. So, welcome both of you to the One Window Podcast.
Glad to be here. Yeah, it's great.
Just to set up a little bit of stage, I wanted to understand a little bit about your organization. So, let us start with Dan here. Dan, for me and for all the audience here, we would like to understand a little bit about you, your university, and why is your university different than others?
Okay, great. Yeah, so starting with me, I've been in international education since 1998. I taught English as a second language for like 22 years before moving to Christian Brothers University, where I work now. So I was brought in at Christian Brothers University in 2001. CBU, it's based in Memphis, Tennessee. We have 30% of our student population is international. So when I started, we had 100 international students. We have over 500 now. We're the fourth largest university receiving international students in Tennessee. So, very proud of the organization, the work we do with international students, and obviously I enjoy working with One Window.
Awesome. Clay, let us understand from you, what does your organization do and who can be the members of your organization, plus how complex and difficult it is to become a certified company.
How much time do you have? Well, first of all, it's your organization and your organization as well. So AIRC is a professional membership association. Our membership is comprised of accredited institutions, most of which are U.S. higher education institutions, although we do have a few non-U.S. institutions and a few high schools that are members as well. The second category is certified agency members, which includes One Window and about 110 other companies around the world who have met some very stringent requirements for membership. And the third category is service providers. This includes other kinds of companies who support international student enrollment but are not directly recruiting students. So this means English language testing companies like ETS is a member, credential evaluators like ECE, we have insurance companies, travel companies, SIM card providers, a wide variety of different companies out there. That's our first function. Is we're a professional membership association focused on standards of best practice, international enrollment. The second function is we are designated by the US federal government as a standards development organization, or SDO. So we are seen as the experts in the field of international enrollment management, and we establish standards of best practice that we expect the field to follow.
So it was really interesting to know about AIRC and CBU and the way you guys are supporting the international education, especially the international recruitment, recruitment of the students from different countries to the US and other parts of the world. To start with, I always had this question coming in from a lot of students and parents that not just one question, there were several questions which I was getting, but I really wanted to understand from you, Dan, that what are those major misconceptions which students and parents have when they plan about their higher education abroad?
Yeah. So I think you can look at it at different levels. So in the same way that a person from the United States might see someone from India and say that person is Indian and not understand at all the complexity of India, the religions, the languages. You find the same thing in the United States. So regionally, the culture can vary, the cost of living can vary greatly. I think a lot of students and families don't have a concept of the size of the United States. Mm-hmm. So for example, I had a student who was advised to fly into Los Angeles and said, oh, you can drive to Memphis from there, which is a 3-day drive, right? So I think something I would love to see with our partnerships with, or what I see from agencies, AIRC certifies agencies, is that the advising is much better about just some of those basics of life in the U.S. Other misconceptions, a big one is part-time employment. So agencies that say, oh yeah, you can go here and you can start working from day one. And so that's something that we have to do with our communications with students not coming through AIRC agencies, making sure that they are aware of their visa obligations. I think this might be a topic that we talk about later, but concerns that students need to be very aware of visa regulations because the current administration, I don't think, will have much flexibility at all. Yeah. So I think, so understanding just U.S. culture in general, visa regulations, I think also the flexibility of U.S. institutions. So for example, at the undergraduate level, the fact that it's really quite easy to change your major. Or at the graduate level that, internship opportunities with the right institution can come quite easily. Or that every institution has on-campus employment. But, that's just, if you have, if your institution is 5,000 students and you have 1,000 international students, there's not going to be a job for everyone. Yeah.
So you mean to say there are a lot of facilities for the international students. It's just that you have to be careful enough to choose when to choose and when to apply. And it's not just the opportunity, it's also very right. It will be a very right decision for the students to choose the right institution for them, which matches to their needs.
Right. And I think, so I'm sure when Clay and I were looking at the college or university that we were going to, the location, the climate, the culture of the campus had a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. And with a lot of international students, I don't see that type of questioning. Will I fit in? What is the campus culture like? oftentimes it's boiled down to, can I afford it? Can I get in, and can I afford it?
Yeah.
And then are there OPT opportunities after?
Yeah.
So it's definitely very important for them to get fed with the right type of questions which they can ask, which are relevant to them, rather than asking the questions which are very generic. So in this same scenario, Clay, I would want to ask you, there has been concerns which are growing day by day, where there are a lot of unethical advisors coming into picture due to multiple reasons. A lot of them think that this is a very easy job, but in reality it is not. So what is that which the students and parents have to keep in mind to save themselves from this unethical advising?
Absolutely. This is one of the critical roles that AIRC plays, is to establish what are standards of best practice and help everyone understand what is ethical and what is not ethical. So some examples of unethical practices that you may encounter include any agency that can promise or guarantee admission into any institution is not best practice, is not ethical. Because admission decisions are made by the institution. Agencies can be advised and aware of what typical admission profiles look like or admission requirements for certain programs, but they should never be implying that they can guarantee admission or make an admission decision or anything like that. Similarly, there should be no guarantee of receiving a certain amount of scholarship or funding from an institution. These are decisions that are always up to the institution. You should never see an agency really push a student toward a particular institution. The best practice is always, as we were just discussing, to help the student find the best fit institution for them and for their needs. We know that many institutions and agencies have contracts, and agencies will receive commission from some institutions, and that's fine. There are ethical ways to manage that, which we expect with AIRC. But it's critical that agents not steer students toward a particular institution simply because they're receiving that commission or funding. It's important that students be able to find that best fit. Another example is if you are working with an agent who tells you, oh, just pay your tuition to me, and then I'll forward it to the institution. This is not a very common practice and could be a red flag. So if you are told something like that, it's always best to verify directly with the institution whether that's the case, whether they prefer that or not. Most cases, at least for US institutions, I know US is a little bit different from the rest of the world, but your final tuition bill is not set until several weeks into the semester. So it's not possible to know up front exactly how much your bill will even be. And at that point, when the bill is due, the student should already be on campus enrolled, right? So there should be no role for the agent in most cases with regard to paying tuition. These things may sound nice up front, but the reality is that they could be evidence of some potentially shady behavior.
Correct, that's right. These days the students and parents are getting duped just by looking at a signboard in an office and few people working in it, which actually cannot be a genuine student advisor. Right. So in this same regards, does it really matter in the university admissions that a student is being guided by a certified agency, or it's just not so common?
Yeah. So if I'm looking at a new market, the first thing I look at is the list of AIRC certified agencies in that market. And so, I'm sure that one of the key goals of AIRC right now is to make sure that that expands into
Absolutely.
as many countries in the world as possible.
Yep, you hit it.
Which again would give me security. So if I'm looking at Latin America, for example, and I know, okay, here are 2 certified agencies in Colombia, here are 5 in Brazil, then I know that's where I will start. And then I think on the other side would be the process of bringing students in and paying the commission for the students. And so, my team, when they're working with an agency that really has a smooth process, all of the materials are put in at the same time. There's probably a little notifications like, hey, we just submitted this application, and that allows us to really meet our goals for turnaround, right? So, okay, we know it's complete. We can just check quickly. If it needs to go to a review committee, I can send it off, and hopefully within a matter of days we get that back. Then it goes to the DSO team, and we can get the I-20 out, within hopefully less than a week, right? Because we know that speed is incredibly important for international students, and I think the first offer is best offer is something that we follow.
Exactly.
So both at the administration level and then in the more practical staff level, working with an ARC agency really, it gives me confidence, right? And it gives the people that have to sign off on the contract as well, saying, oh, okay, I know what this means, and we know that the agency's been vetted, and so what I find is that contracts go through much quicker as well.
Correct, right. So one thing this reminds me of, you mentioned about the process of when the application comes in and the offer goes out. Can you stress a little bit about it, about how much time does it take and what are the steps which actually happens behind the scenes during the admissions, because that helps the students to understand what exactly to be ready with even before they want to apply. And when you rightly mentioned that when the students are coming from a certified agencies, the companies, the advisor knows what to tell to the student to be prepared with when they come in. So those points with the step-by-step things which you mentioned, that will be really helpful if you can.
Well, it varies greatly from institution to institution, the amount of time. So CBU has rolling admissions, right? So if you apply today, there's a good chance that within 2 weeks, within a week you could have your acceptance and I-20 a week after that. But a lot of institutions will have a deadline to apply and then release their decisions. And so I think a lot of the more competitive institutions have to work that way. Because they need to assess the pool of applicants, because obviously they're trying to get the best students that they can. The goal of my institution is to provide a quality education to students regardless of their background, which is why that rolling admissions works better for us. So I think, again, the agency really has to be aware of that and prepare the students, like, okay, you want to apply to this institution, it might be 6 months before you have an admissions decision. Can you wait, right? Are you willing to go be patient in order to really get into that dream school? So I think, that would be the kind of simple answer to that.
Right. Thank you so much for giving that process out in detail, because again this will help the students to be patient enough and to understand which institutions are giving the admissions out fast and which can take time, and it makes the life of a student advisor also simple, because the anxiety level which sometimes the students might get onto during the process is really different. All right, so let's talk about something which is burning issue right now. There's a lot of talks about this in social media, in mainstream media, and among the students and parents about the jobs in the US. There has been a lot of talks that there are jobs which are not available. There are problems about students not being able to find one right after their graduation. They're struggling to find that. Plus, they are feared about the deportation parts. So, can you stress a little bit about it, of your thoughts and then your thoughts as well?
Sure. Well, I think it's important for students to keep in mind that, except in very rare circumstances, U.S. institutions do not offer placements or guarantee any kind of employment after graduation. It is the student's responsibility to do the work and find the OPT job of their dreams. Now, institutions will offer a variety of supports to help students along that journey. They all have career services offices who will do things like help you revise your CV or resume to make it more attractive, or more scannable by the AI bots or whatever is happening with HR these days. They will help you with job interview skills, and maybe do mock interviews with you so that you can be better prepared for interviews. They will advise you on where to go to find job postings, different kinds of job boards, how to use LinkedIn, for example. Many of them will also host career fairs, job fairs on campus, and invite employers to come to campus and arrange times that you can meet prospective employers. Many, as you mentioned, Dan, have great internship programs, regardless of your major, regardless of your F1 visa status. They should have the resources and capacity to help you find internships while studying. So if all of these supports are there, and if students do not take full advantage of them, then they're not setting themselves up for success in the job hunt.
Yeah.
So that's one important point to keep in mind.
Yeah, what Clay just said drives me absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
If you have a student that's a month away from graduating,
Yeah.
and they come in and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," and I say, "Have you been to career services?" They're like, "No." "Have you set up a LinkedIn profile?" "No." It's like, well, what have you done for the past 2 years?
Right.
And then, and not every student is that way, and you have students that are the exact opposite, where they've been able to do 2 or 3 internships, they've done externships, and so in advising students for university selection, career services is a huge part in the quality of the career services that the institution has.
Yeah.
Some programs also have required internships,
Right.
which means they have partners with local companies that say, okay, we know that you're going to have 50 students in this program, and we can absorb that into our internship program. So, the job opportunities, obviously very important. I think also this is a good example of regionally, if you hear that, Microsoft or another company has laid off a lot of employees, that doesn't mean that in Alabama or Minnesota that there aren't job opportunities, right? And so this is where doing some research in worker mobility in the United States, so like where are U.S. workers moving to because there are opportunities?
Right.
What jobs, what professions are expected to have growth, over the next 10 years? I think, if I were an applicant, I would be looking at all of those things before making my decision.
Absolutely right. The worker mobility point is absolutely right, and this is what is a part of the right planning for a student. This is what the advisors have to advise to the students, that this is how things are happening and you need to plan it this way. So absolutely right point. Clay, you mentioned something about the AI, of course, referring things to AI, it brings me to this part where people are telling AI is taking away a lot of jobs, you will be out of your job because AI is taking it over. So I understand the terminology, that what is happening and what will happen next, because we are working on the same technologies moving forward. But want to understand from you, is this really going to happen in this way? And if it's not, then what is the students have to be prepared with?
Yeah, well, my understanding is that in the ideal world, AI is a tool to help people be more productive and effective. But there are certain ways in which it will never be able to replace the human brain. And so I think good institutions are preparing students for that reality, and preparing students to be the ones who can drive AI and use AI effectively. And I think the US education system in particular is stronger than most around the world in this regard, because we really do prize critical thinking and analysis and communication as key skills, regardless of major in the US. This is particularly apparent at the undergraduate level, where the liberal arts curriculum is the core of everything, regardless of your major. But even at the graduate level, we expect students to be able to write effectively, to communicate orally, and give presentations effectively in any major.
Right.
And so I think that the US does position you better for a world with AI. And there are many statistics to demonstrate that despite growth in all these different tools that exist and all the technological changes, despite the growth of sort of sub-degree credentials, whether it's a short-term boot camp kind of thing or a micro-credential or a certification in a certain software, despite all of that, which do provide opportunities, still the university degree is the best ticket to long-term prosperity. And I believe it's because it helps equip your mind to think critically, to analyze, to evaluate, to communicate. And these are skills that are not going to go away.
Yeah, I've got a couple points there. So, as soon as ChatGPT became like readily available, like our English department at CBU said, okay, let's have a series of lectures on this, seminars, and they immediately realized we have to make this part of the curriculum. You can't just say it doesn't exist, or we're just going to put in all of these ways to test if it's there. It's just changing so quickly. And then, I'm always looking at, what can our program, how do our programs need to adjust to what I think it's a revolution, right? And just the way that humans and this technology will interact moving forward. And so, what I see, and to Clay's point about critical thinking, and I'll add, communication skills, it's the people that are comfortable working alongside the AI, but also can communicate to humans, what things mean. It's that really those skills that you get through a liberal arts education that will be seen as extremely valuable moving forward.
Yeah, and media literacy is part of that as well. So we know that the AI tools that are publicly available have foibles, have issues right now, don't always provide accurate information. And it's critical that humans be able to wade through that and evaluate what actually makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and help find the valuable information.
Yeah.
To put it in simple words, would you agree to this, that AI can be considered as a car? If you don't know how to drive a car, then you might be behind the line always, right? So it can be the same thing.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. People or the students have to know how this tool can be utilized in different ways, so that it becomes very easy for them to execute their job. And rather than being afraid of losing the job because of AI, they should be like, how do I get to use AI to get more jobs, be more productive, right? Absolutely. So in this case, Dan, my question to you would be, when the students' parents come and ask that, will my kid be able to get a job after graduation? And when you mentioned that the university provides so many career services, how often does the institution, does CBU change and upgrade its services towards a student, considering the changing scenarios of these days?
Well, we're always looking for partners, whether it's in the medical field, IT, whatever. We're always looking for partners that, they have critical needs as well. So in Memphis, we just had a meeting with 4 educational institutions in Memphis, with several business leaders and the Chamber of Commerce. And we were asking the question, how can international students fit the critical needs in job development that we have in Memphis, right? And so it's those partnerships that, that makes me feel confident when I'm talking with a family to say, there's a high likelihood that if you, work hard, get through the degree, take advantage of the opportunities on campus, that you can find a job placement. The other thing that we do at least is after every graduation, 3-4 months later, we take a look at the number of students who applied for OPT, were approved for OPT, and then found job placements. Mm-hmm. And so, so one of my key selling points is that last year it was 97%, this year it was 96.6%. I was expecting it to drop to 90%. Mm-hmm. And so to see that students are still finding those jobs gave me a lot of confidence that, I can go out and not promise, but
yeah.
but again, saying, the opportunities are there. Don't believe everything you hear about job opportunities in the U.S.
Awesome. There has been instances where we have observed that a student with 70% in their GPA gets into a top university, and a student with a 90% still gets rejected. What are those factors which actually institutions consider? Clay, you have also been with multiple institutions earlier and now with the standards organization. So how these factors can also help a certified company to take it into consideration for admissions. So, if you can give a little brief about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, prior to joining the AIRC team, I also worked in international student recruitment and admissions at a public research university for many years. And it is the case that admission in the United States tends to be more complicated than it does in other countries, mm-hmm. because in the US we consider a variety of factors. We use a model that we call holistic review, mm-hmm. for each and every applicant. This stands in contrast to perhaps a British system where they say if you get these 3 A levels and you get an A in chemistry and a B in biology and a B in medicine, then you're guaranteed admission to a particular program. You will find no U.S. institution at any level that has admission criteria that are that specific and cut and dry. So at the undergraduate level, we tend to review things like extracurricular activities, involvement outside of the classroom in clubs and sports, which can demonstrate leadership and communication skills and other things that are useful in the classroom. We tend to look at test scores in combination with grades. We can look at grade trends. Are your grades trending up or down? Mm-hmm. Which can indicate your general attitude and energy that you're bringing to your studies. Mm-hmm. And then also personal essays, if there are particular stories based on your background or hardships that you have faced or anything like that. At the graduate level, it's a fairly similar constellation of elements that go into it, I would say, except that there's kind of an added element within the statement of purpose. It's a little bit less about the personal story, and it's a little bit more about why is this particular program the right fit for you, which has a couple of elements. It's why are you well prepared for this particular program? What in your background? What is it about this program that you are specifically excited about? Can you tell us particular courses, particular professors that you want to study with? And then how does this fit into your future career plans? Mm-hmm. How will this particular program really set you up for success, and how do you plan to use it? I think at the graduate level, we also look at things like work experience more than at the undergrad level, which can be very valuable. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we see international applicants for graduate programs who are coming straight out of undergrad. Mm-hmm. It can actually be more valuable for an institution to see that you've worked for a year or two in the field, because that can give the institution greater confidence that this is actually the direction you want to go. Right. You've tried it out in the real world. You've evaluated, yes, this is the right direction for me, or no, I actually want to change. And keep in mind, in the US, you can switch direction from undergrad to grad program. You don't have to be locked into the same major just because that's what you studied at undergrad. So there is a lot that goes into it. And this is why it can be very difficult for U.S. institutions to give a clear, precise set of admission criteria.
Of what do they need?
Yeah, there's always, well, but,
Right.
or if and, right? There are always these elements that go into it.
Yeah, the holistic part, I found, when I joined CBU and I was, inherited these admission standards, it didn't seem very flexible. And so it was, this GPA that we didn't have benchmarks in place, and so we were having to put, every transcript through a evaluation, this English score, and we would look at essays or statements of purpose, but as I got to know the different cultures coming in and what this score means or this institution means, then we were able to be more subtle in our admission standards. And then when I travel, what I love is actually being able to meet a student who comes up to me and says, really my grades aren't that great, but you see their passion, you hear their communication skills, and maybe they tell you, this is why.
Yep.
Right? And then so I can go back and say, hey, look out for this application from this student, and why don't we set up an oral interview? And so that kind of will help alleviate these concerns that we might have, right? So if we see that persistence, good communication with the counselor, it can make a lot of difference in whether we end up accepting that student or not.
Absolutely.
I really like the flexibility which US institutions give, the admission departments give. So we understand with this that it's not just about the grades, it's more than that. So in reality, a lot of students might get misguided by telling that your grades are low, but then as you mentioned, because of the passion what they have, because of the communication skills they hold, and the level of understanding they have about the subject might really change the complete scenario for them.
Yes.
How is it different for the financial assistance? I mean, let's call it scholarships or grants or whichever way. How does this matter, the grades and the other things matter for a student to get a financial assistance from the institution?
Okay, yeah, so I think you should break it into the different types of scholarships. So the merit scholarship often is just really based on a GPA or a test score. There might be competitive ones where the essay is involved with that. My institution, we have a lot of international athletes, and so they get athletic scholarships as well. For international students, the need-based is a bit more challenging. So because if it's need-based, the institution is either deciding, because of our passion for serving students of need, we're willing to have less revenue for the student by applying this need-based scholarship. Or they have a donor who said, okay, I'm going to fund this. But in any case, those opportunities for most institutions are going to be very limited.
Yeah.
Right, and so they may have, we have 2 full scholarships, for students, and then it's often very specific, from this background. So finding those opportunities can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
So, at CBU, at the undergraduate level, if you're admitted, you get a merit scholarship, and we actually scale it based on what we see the bank statement that middle-class families can provide. We try to stay in that level, and we offer it across the board. And we don't change our tuition based if you're domestic or international. So that type of equity is important to us.
Nice.
Yeah. Whereas at the graduate level, we actually have no scholarships, but we are price competitive. Right, so if I can go to a student and say, you can complete our degree for the same cost that this other institution for 1 year, right? And so that's something that takes some coaching. It's like, well, isn't there a scholarship? I was like, well, do your math, put all of the figures together, and you'll see that you're coming
A
out better.
lower tuition cost is just as effective at lowering your costs as a scholarship.
Right.
Yeah.
So that makes things more easier and simpler as well. That there's no scholarship. It's everybody is getting charged the same, and everybody is getting delivered the same, and you have an equal chance of not being burdened by the finances and focusing on your academics and scoring well, rather than being in this I would say in this pressure that okay, I have to work part time, or I have to get some money, or I have to get on the internship which is a paid one, or I have to get onto a job because I have a loan standing which is to be repaid. So having a lower cost makes things very easier and simpler for the students as well as the parents.